I'm Greg Tuke, and I'm with Tuke International Consulting, and this is the second of a three-part series on how to make compelling videos. In the first part, we talked about the most important part of creating a great story, and that is, or a great video, and that is to, really have a good story in mind. But then after you've done that, you're 80% of the way there. You want to be able to really make it pop by having good images and good sound and then mixing it well together. So this last 20% is what I'm going to be talking about. And in particular, in this training, I'll be talking about photography and elements of great photography. So let's get started. So the first is you want to have a primary focus, a primary point of focus in your photographs, and keep it simple. And in this example here, you have this young girl with nice light, soft light on her face, and nothing in the background, just a blank screen, so nothing gets in the way of this moment of her kissing this heart. So nice and simple, not cluttered. A second rule you want to think about, a second element, is this idea of rule of thirds. And what that means is that when we commonly start off in making and taking photos, we oftentimes will take the focal point of interest and put it right smack dab in the middle of our viewfinder and take the picture. But that oftentimes leads to boring shots. And what we know about the human eye is that we're attracted to things that are slightly off-center. And in fact, we're most attracted to things that follow this idea of rule of thirds. And what that means is if you were to take a photo and draw, two vertical lines and two horizontal lines, and divide it up into thirds, you would get something like this, and you would then see that these cross points here, 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 and here, those are like PowerPoints. Those are where you want to place your focal primary point of interest. So in this photo, obviously, simple photo, the primary point of focus is right here. So you put her head with the sun in the background behind it right in that PowerPoint. The other thing you notice about this is if you look at how the horizon is divided up, the horizon could have been right in the center, like halfway through, but instead it's up here almost to the 1/3 part. So 2/3 is ocean and the top third is the sun. And so that's another way to think about how you divide up a picture so it becomes more interesting. Now a third element in great photography is getting a variety of shots from various distances. So in this example, you see three. You see one on the left-hand side here is a close-up of Machu Picchu and a particular object, in this case a skeleton head at Machu Picchu. And then you see off the right a setting shot here, so you get a sense of what this whole place is like, where are you, and then you have a mid-range shot. So when you're out taking photos, think of getting multiple distances from the object. That will help you find good photos to be able to use. Now, one thing they say about photography is that if you don't like your photos, get closer. And if you still don't like them, get closer still. So here's an example. I was out on in a wilderness ocean beach in Washington State and saw this really gorgeous field of these kind of cactus-like flowers. And so I took a picture of that. But then my friend said, hey, get a little closer. And when I got closer, I saw these bees that I hadn't seen before, pollinating it. So again, a gorgeous kind of shot, and became better because I got closer. Here's another example, setting shot. Interesting shot of Tahrir Square. So I want to see that photo. I want to see, what this is all about with thousands of people protesting here. But I may want to get a mid-range shot too, because that's also interesting. And the two together in the video might be particularly interesting. Shot of Tahrir Square, with the artistic political drawings that are up depicting the story of the protests. And then close-up of one of the particular portraits. Students in Iraq, we worked with making clothes for the poor. And then here's a face shot of one of the girls making clothing. So think about this variety of shots when you're out there. You know, the really nice thing about photography in today's world is you don't have to worry about the cost of film. You know, you can take multiple pictures to try and find the right one. So don't be afraid of taking some picture of an image or an object or a place and taking it from a variety of distances. Now, another element you want to be thinking about is subject angles. So not just distance, but angles. So in this case, these are some student activists in Iraq just after the war, and they went out one weekend and planted 2,000 trees. And what was particularly cool about that was they got all parts of the community doing this. It wasn't just the Global Citizen Corps students, but they got, in this case, as you can see, this is a mayor or a city official who went out with them too, which was kind of unusual. So the angle that this student chose for this picture was this. But look at what the TV reporter did. He's down here. Different angle. Why? There's reasons for both. And that's the thing about photography, is that while it is reality that you're taking a photo of, it's your take on reality, which is, you know, true about all of us anyway. It's how we see things, you know, and what's the image we want to present to other people. What's our take on reality? In this case, the TV reporter decided his take was he wanted to get the students that were actually doing the planting, in fact, the youngest students, and he wanted to get down at their level. He didn't care about the public officials. That wasn't the story he was going to tell. So think about subject angle and what meaning that gives to the story. Now here's a typical shot that we often take, you know, all of us together in a group. But here's the more interesting shot, because they're all getting ready to go vote. And Cardo here, this is a picture of him having just voted, and of course his finger pointing with the ink spot on it, indicating that he has now voted. Now here's another interesting thing about this photo, is not only is it simple, and it's a more interesting one than the group shot before to tell the story, but notice how his head is popped up above the horizon here. So it's, again, a blank background, so he really stands out. And same with his finger. His finger, you know, the angle that the person took here made it possible for that also to be above any kind of clutter and stand out. And, again, the rule of thirds. This is in one of those PowerPoints. Now, I was talking about taking group photos. Here's an example of a bunch of different ways in which you can take that same kind of picture, a group photo, but just do it in a more creative way. So think about how you can do that. The Dalai Lama. A good friend of mine, Phil Borges, took this shot of the Dalai Lama when he was there in India. Again, his head above the horizon. So it doesn't get, you know, cluttered with background noise, and also very simple. Nothing else except, you know, the simplicity, which is the image he wanted to portray of the Dalai Lama. So let's take a look. Single point of interest. Here's one kind of shot of, you know, a bunch of people protesting an environmental issue, global warming. Here's another one with a couple kids. So both portraying kids, you know, talking about the environment, one a little better than the other. Now, light is something that you really need to think about when you're doing your photography. How do I get the right light and get the right light on the subject? So in this case, this was in the heat of day, but we're inside. But it's very dark. And in fact, in this restaurant, with these two women who were leaders in Iraq working with those student groups that you saw earlier, I wanted to get a picture of them using some of the technology they use there. And I just happened to be able to see that there was light coming in, refracted light, softer light, coming in through the curtains off here on the left-hand side and coming across their faces, if I got just right with them. So, dark setting, but was able to capture the shot in a way that kind of highlighted their faces because I was thinking about the light that came in. Now, sweet light is what a young student in Tibet used to refer to it, you know, that kind of light that you get not at midday, but early in the morning or late at night, dawn and dusk. The first hour of sunlight, the first hour as it goes down. Those tend to be the softest and prettiest times. And cloudy days tend to be way better than bright sunny days. So, another way you can think about getting portraits of people, and the camera loves the face, is you can think about natural frames that help create some borders to your shot. And here's some natural frames here. You know, looking in through an opening, framed in the doorway, framed in a window way. And another way you can get faces instead of just a straight face shot is think about a prop, an appropriate prop that might go with that. You know, in this one image on top, you know, here's a gardener and holding up, you know, some of her wares, and also a young student below with some goggles and work gloves on. Or in this case, a student out at a beach doing environmental investigation with her tool. Now, another thing that is helpful to think about is this notion about leading lines. These are the things that pull you into a photo, you know, and draw your eye across this. Or in this case, these eyes, you know, drawing you into the photo and out like that. Those help establish eye movement across the point of interest. Another thing to think about is how you crop a shot. And sometimes you don't want to get the full head, for example, in this case, because the point of interest here is kind of this tight shot in here with his eye in his hands, right in here. That's what you want to get. And so to create this tighter feeling, the head was partly cropped off. Another shot of a couple of students. The one on the left, not so interesting. Not great shots of their face, not a primary point of interest, but over here, a little more energy. You know, two students, grabs you. Now, I can show you lots of examples of bad photos that I have taken. Here's some that another photographer had taken, and just to show, you know, it's fine to take a bunch of shots, but be strategic about them. You know, don't think about the light so it's not too dark and not too bright, like the one in the middle, which is a little bit too harsh a light there. Think about distance. I mean, this setting shot here isn't too interesting. You know, you can't tell really, you know, what's interesting here. This one down here, two people, but you know, look at this. This guy here on the left. The letters are behind his head, you know, and they kind of like mess things up here. He doesn't stand out. This is a little better here because at least it's a blank background, but not a great one. And this one, you know, where do you want the eye to go? What are you doing with that? It could be a setting shot, but it might be more interesting with this one. I'd be curious to see what would happen, you know, if you just focused in on maybe that woman in the front. You know, what might that be like, or you know, her and the woman next to it. So these are the key elements of getting good photography, and if you do those things, your shots are going to improve enormously from where they are now, And you can then apply them to video, those same principles. And that's what we'll talk about in the third video that I'll show you. Thanks a lot.